So hi and a warm welcome to our viewers today. Today we're going to be talking about unified service management with a fantastic panel of experts. If you're interested in service management, you really don't want to miss today's discussion. Shanice and Blanche are both over in the social chat, so please let them know your name, the city where you're watching from. It is an interactive event, so please get involved in the chat. If you have any questions for the panel, feel free to enter them into the chat and we'll get them over to the panel to answer live a little bit later on. So I think let's jump straight in and meet our panel without further ado. So hi everybody and welcome to today's event. It's really great to have you all here. So I'm going to start by introducing Esther. Esther Terpstra is a service management architect, and she basically designs anything that service is required. Yeah? When it comes to services, processes, people, service tooling within the Dutch government, Esther is the person to go to. She's also an expert in the method of unified service management. She helps to design, advise, and coach implementations of USM. So welcome, Esther. Great to have you on the show.
Thank you. And welcome all.
Fantastic, absolutely. And Jan van Bond is an enterprise service management architect. He helps to reduce complexity and achieve stable improvement, sustainable improvement, should we say, with the USM method. And it's a unique proposition, really, from a non-profit organization. Jan has produced more than 100 management books and thousands of authors and reviewers. Okay, that's a lot. So in his latest book, Unified Service Management, An Introduction to the USM Method, Jan actually summarizes the lessons learned from the past into a single book on the topic of service management architecture and service management systems. Okay, it's less than 200 pages. We highly recommend that you read it. Welcome, Jan.
Great to be here, and my compliments for finding a great title for this webinar series. I really like the term revolution.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks for being here, Jan. Mikko Korhonen is an experienced service management advisor, coach, trainer, and consultant. And he likes to take the mystique out and mumbo out of service governance and management, which I think is absolutely something we should be doing every day. With over 20 years experience from the trenches, he's learned that they all share the same symptoms of service management gone bad. Mikko's mission is to help them fix that. So welcome, Mikko.
Thank you. Great to be here. Welcome aboard, everyone.
Fantastic. Great to have you here as well. And lastly, John Worthington has over 40 years experience in the IT industry, spanning 2 decades in sales and business development with more than 20 years in IT service management. Wow, that's a lot of experience, John. And he brings a wealth of experience to the table for today's panel discussion as well, having worked with many leading corporations throughout his career. So, John, it's great to have you on the show with us.
Glad to be here.
Fantastic. Awesome to have you here. So I think without waiting any more, let's get back into the questions, because I think we have quite a few of them to go through. And I think the first question is going to be, I'm going to say, let's answer this in the order of John and then Jan. So John, let me start with you. What is USM?
Well, first of all, USM is a method, not a framework. And the method provides a generic or a universal definition of a service, which is really important, and a unique management system based on a non-redundant process model, and it gives us standard workflows. And these can be used by any framework, any process model, or any reference model or any standard. And so the USM method really complements the traditional frameworks that we hear about, like ITIL and COBIT. It doesn't really compete with them. And, for a long time now, we've had specifications like ISO that tell us what a service management system is and what it should have. But there's been very little guidance on or a method for its creation and ongoing sustainability, right? And that's what the USM method provides.
Fantastic. That's really great. Jan, maybe you can tell us a bit as well.
Yeah, well, if you look at USM, it's actually the opposite of all the best practice frameworks. USM is only a method, and a method really is only knowledge. So this can be shared at no cost. It's a method that specifies something that John didn't confirm, architecture, because we specify a very explicit architecture for managing services. And in that architecture, you can define a management system, what John talked about. Now, that management system thing is let's say, a mystical thing. Frameworks, they don't discuss it, and yet every team and every organization needs to have a management system to get in control of what they do. So the concept of a management system is core to every service supply chain, every service ecosystem. And what we did with USM is that in a methodical way, we specified the most efficient management system, the most universal management system that you can come up with to create endless supply chains or endless service ecosystems throughout any line of industry.
Fantastic, Jan. That's really helpful to know. So I think that describes pretty accurately what USM actually is, okay, which is why we're here today. So let's move on to our next question. Jan, I think this one is for you. Where did USM come from and who actually governs it now?
Yeah, well, the history of USM is quite long. It actually started out in the late 1980s with Dutch National Post. In those days, we were trying to manage complex mainframe environments. But then soon this IT environment moved to Dutch National Telecom, where we saw the emergence of mid-range data centers. Now it got complex and more complex, and that's when the first ITIL deployment project hit the Netherlands with Dutch National Telecom. So from day one, we did something different from what everyone else has been doing for the last 35 years with ITIL guidance. We created a management system-like thing. We just picked elements from the ITIL guidance that we found useful, and we created a systematic approach. Now, that was the beginning of a service management system, and we didn't call it a system. We called it the bathtub model. That's the name we gave it because it came with an image that had the shape of a bathtub. Nobody knows about that anymore, but that's where it all started out. So in the early 90s, when we came up with the first ideas of creating management systems, Dutch society was really all over the place in terms of service management. We had 3 competing service management magazines before any other country had its first. Now, we were a sea of knowledge of service management, things that came up. And that was still commercial, so we didn't really succeed in what we tried to do. And it only changed when in 2016 we launched the SURVUZ Foundation, a really non-profit organization that wrapped up everything we had learned from the previous 25 years into something that could be shared, pure knowledge, non-commercial. And what we did is we wrapped everything up in a method. Method is just theory. We started sharing that. Anyone who wanted it, they could simply use it. That was a start almost 10 years ago of a community that has now emerged from this. And that community governs the USM method. It's a community of something like 50 organizations. There's a lot of certified professionals. We are currently located in 12 countries, and number 13 and 14 coming up now. We bring USM knowledge in Dutch, in English, in Spanish, in German, in Finnish, and soon also in French. So we're all over the place, and it's a vibrant community that co-produces new knowledge carriers around the idea of a management system.
Thanks, Jan. That's really great. Just want to point everybody to the QR code here on screen. If you just scan your mobile phone to that QR code, it'll take you to the USM Wiki. It's an invaluable resource. There is so much information about USM and how it fits together, how you utilize it, and it's the body of knowledge. So go to the USM Wiki, everybody. Take a look at that. You can always come back to this. I'll show this QR code again a little bit later on. So don't forget about it. USM Wiki is the place that you want to go. So just before we move on, I just want to give a shout out to everybody online. There are so many people joining us online, and lots of people I can see from all around the world. We've got people from Belgium, Dubai, Germany, Canada, Netherlands, Portugal, Holland, you name it, Spain. I think we've got most countries in Europe and the world represented today. So even Namibia from Southern Africa. So really welcome to everybody. If you have any questions for the panel and just want to know a little bit more about USM, please pop them straight into the chat and one of our team will pick them up and get them over to us straight away. Okay, so just pop them into the chat and we'll do a shout out for a bit more social just now. All right, I think let's pop on and take a look at our next question. Now, the next question is actually, can you describe the problem USM solves, which I think is the question which is really burning in most people's minds. But before I ask the panel to answer this, we actually have a little video from a customer, and the customer has put this together very briefly for us to describe how they use USM. So let's take a listen to that quickly first.
Hi, my name is Jaakko Salmela and I work as a business development manager in Finnish telco company DNA. DNA is owned by Norwegian teleoperator Telenor, and in DNA we have approximately 1 billion revenue and 1,600 employees. My responsibility is service level management. We started using USM method as a part of a service management development initiative in 2020, and afterwards we have widened the use of USM method in other service management and especially in service level management. In 2023 we started to renew our whole service level management process by making new operational level agreements. Here is when the USM method really came alive in DNA, since we were using the service agreement template of USM to describe what is our service, with all facilities and supports of every single service. I can mention 3 actual benefits of implementing USM method in our service level management. The first one is that we have increased our efficiency in RFP and RFI processes, since we have decreased the deviations in SLAs. We have clear operational level agreements, so there is not so much deviations. The second one is that we have more clarified go-to-market model, since every time a service is launched, there have to be operational level agreement based on unified service model service agreement. And the third one is that we have widened our offering in value-added services, since we have clarified how our services are built. So there, more clarified processes and more service revenue. Yeah, and of course the brief recommendation of USM method. I can recommend this method from bottom of my heart when you are describing a service or just try to make your service management better. Just keep your mind open and try new things and apply USM. Thank you, bye.
Fantastic. So there we have it in the, from the words of a very, very large telco in Europe, okay, who are using the method USM, or body of knowledge. So I think we're going to take with this question, can you describe the problem that USM solves? I'm going to start with Mikko. And Mikko, we've got some input here for you to discuss as well before we move on to Esther. So go ahead, Mikko.
Yeah, as we heard in what Jaakko said about how DNA has applied the USM, it really all starts with the service. Service is in the middle. As in the picture you can see, it's about the interaction between the provider and the customer. So we provide the services, but in any service provider organization nowadays, there's a huge misunderstanding on the term service. If you start in any organization, you can see that, okay, we have service catalogs, service offerings, we have service portfolios, we have service level agreements, operational level agreements, whatever a million service thing is, without defining actually the term service itself. So in the modern days, since the 90s, we live in a service world. We have software as a service, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, everything is a service. Service used to be from the 50s, it's something like an after-sales thing that you take care of the customers once they have bought products or something. So there is a misunderstanding that something it's about we continuously do. That's the way we interact between the provider and the customers. And it's not just the one provider and one customer, it's a whole chain of links with the provider, customers also being the provider to another customer, and et cetera, et cetera. So, and same goes logically for the terms processes and practices. But if you really want to solve the case, that's you need to figure out the definition of the term service. And in USM, that's supported facility. And it's interesting thing is trying to translate the term into Finnish, for example, and we found a great translation for it. So, but what facility is? It's goods and actions, we combined. But there is the support. So there is no facility without the support. And that's universal definition for every service. It doesn't matter if it's IT or HR or legal or facilities or building management, preventive maintenance. It's all services. Method is always the same. So in USM, we take that's always the starting point. This is the big picture. This is the architecture. We always have the provider, we have the customer, we have in the middle, we have the service. Service being supported facility consisting of goods and actions, and taking it from there.
Fantastic, Mikko. Thank you. That actually explained it so eloquently. I think, Esther, you had some comments on this as well.
Yeah, sure. From my perspective, let me elaborate a bit more about the problems. And one of the strategic ambitions of my organization, I work for Justid, this is the Justice Information Services, part of the Ministry of Justice and Security. The ambition is that we are striving towards service excellence from a customer perspective. Doesn't anybody? Everybody does that, I think. But however, like other governmental organizations, we struggle with the question of how to manage and deliver our services and how to improve the quality of our services. And questions in my organization are, and perhaps you recognize them, some, all, now let's start with shared definitions, the use of a shared glossary. And Mikko said it, what is considered a service? And do you call it a service or a product or support or a facility? And do they have different meanings or not? And is there anything you deliver that is not to be considered a service? And what is considered a process, procedure, a work instruction, a practice? And when is something considered to be run? And when does it become a change? So do we understand each other in our terminology? And not between ourselves, but in a broader way in the whole chain. And regarding delivery of services, do we have a real understanding of the services we deliver? Do we know what we deliver, and do our customers know? And is our delivered value really based on the explored needs of our customers? And what is mutually expected in terms of agreements? And is everyone aware of that? And do we know what the cost is of our services in terms of money or hours spent? And do we know enough about ownership, roles, tasks, responsibilities, permissions, authority per service? And do we have clear routines to support our services incorporated in our service management tooling? And do we use architectural service management principles that support what we buy, develop, and change? And are they in line with our vision, mission, values, strategy, goals, our governance? So are we able to deliver as expected in the service supply chains we are part of? And in my opinion, the answer is that we often don't know, at least not well enough. So Houston, here we have a problem. Speaking about problems, we lack, in my opinion, a standardized, unified, universal method to resolve this. We have created a huge complexity in striving for integrated service chains where everything and everyone is clearly involved and connected. So we often experience a lack of control over what we need to deliver. And in a big service chain, this is killing for C-level governance, management, operation, customers, citizens, patients, for everyone. And we do our best without really knowing if it's good or right. And the problem never lies in the amount of effort and expertise people put into delivering service. The problem lies in a lack of clarity and simplicity. And USM gives you that needed control and clarity combined with simplicity, with a non-redundant process model and service management architecture. That's my opinion.
Fantastic. Thanks, Esther. I think that definition is so critical, what you were mentioning. If you don't understand what your service actually is and you're not speaking the same language across the board, it's absolute recipe for disaster. you're going to end up in a lot of confusion as you're talking in English, what we call cross purposes. So very, very important to have that common understanding of what a service is, what your customer is, what a provider is, what the service components are from end to end. So very, very good. Thank you so much for that answer. It's very helpful to know that the Dutch government is using this and taking it very seriously as well. Jan, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think it was clear that Jaco and Mikko and Esther emphasized that this is about structure. To some people, it may seem like a semantic issue. We all know what a service is. Who doesn't? But if you ask 100 people what a service is, you get 100 different answers for the same thing. That means that supply chains simply will never work, at least not efficiently, if they don't get the same shared idea of what the structure of a service is, whatever terms you use for it. This is not semantic. This is about structure, and therefore we specified architecture. And if you look at what architects are talking about, I talk to a lot of architects on a daily basis, they all are specifying data models or technology architecture or whatever. They have a complete blind eye for management architecture. So they focus on the stuff, the outcome, the products, the services, etc., and they lack a vision on how to manage that. So if there's no cooperation model, no interoperability model behind that, everything stays fuzzy. Now, that's what happened for the last 30 years. We've been trying to get in control because that's what USM provides. The problem of control is going to be solved. We try to solve the problem of control for 30 years in a specific approach using best practice guidance. Einstein told us that if you have a problem, you can't solve it by doing what you did. If you do what you did, you get what you got. So whatever is needed to get out of that loop is to find a different approach. I think that is exactly what USM is going to provide. It solves the blind eye of architects, of approaches, of frameworks, of standards, etc., by finally looking at the internal, the heart of the system, instead of looking at the symptoms. And that requires clear definitions, as the previous speaker said, clear structures, so everyone starts to understand each other. We finally get to do what we always have been wanting to do.
Fantastic, thank you. John, final comments briefly on this.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can add too much more other than to say what I like about it is this logically repeatable structure. And it doesn't inhibit you. You can use whatever practice technique to get customer aligned. And it's integrated with USM's concept of routine. So it satisfies both the customer and the provider. So they're on the same page, which I like. Really effective in doing that.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, everybody. I think that really helps to define what services are, the structures you need, and the benefits of having that in place. The questions are stacking up quite quickly, so I think let's jump on to the next one straight away. And the next question is, what actually does USM deliver? So, John, I'm going to start with you on this one, and then we're going to go to Jan after that.
So, could you ask the question again?
Yeah, sure. So the question is, what does USM deliver?
Okay, so, well, we already talked about one thing, right? The logically repeatable definition of a service for any service provider. So that is a major deliverable, if you will. But the other deliverable is a non-redundant process model that provides the ability to have a consistent set of routines, a consistent structure for all routines of the enterprise, whether you're IT or finance or HR, it doesn't matter. They all are pretty consistent. And I'm sure that Jan can elaborate significantly on what I just said.
Thanks, John. Well, with that, Jan, for elaboration.
John emphasized the main component of USM, structure. And structures is what we specify in an architecture. And an architecture is always based on three elements, three components. First of all, what we talked about, the very specific and consistent list of definitions. If definitions are not internally consistent, you can just create chaos. The second component of an architecture is the set of building blocks you define, and that's what John addressed by talking about the non-redundant process model. And that's a building block. There's many more building blocks in USM. And the third component is the set of rules to apply the building blocks to get consistent results, because that's where you find your efficiency, and that's where you can get in control. When you apply that to service agreements, to a relationship with customers and providers and internal solution teams, you can finally find a base for getting in control. And the term process is crucial because, as John said, he referred to the routines, the work instructions and the procedures. The concept of process is core to any definition of a standard routine that is going to be used for something that we'll discuss later, value streams and customer journeys.
Fantastic, thank you. Mikko, your final thoughts on this one?
Yeah, so the actual real concrete value, put it shortly, it's like kind of like having a 24/7 GPS system continuously telling you where to go with the service development and service management. You're never lost. You always have the blocks. You always know where to go, where to be. That's what it enables.
Fantastic. Exactly. And I think that that's the critical part here, right? It really is the critical part. We've got so many questions stacking up now. We're getting quite a few live questions in. I'd like to move on to the next question from our side, which is who benefits from USM? And Esther, I'm going to come to you for this one, if you don't mind.
The answer is quite simple. Everyone benefits from USM. If you consider everything you deliver to someone else should be regarded as a service, then you get everything as a service because everything is a service. So every line of business can and should work with USM. And that's the U in USM, unified, also known as universal, uniform. And if we all work along this line, we can join hands, handshakes in our service chains, so we can deliver integrated services. So a little bit more detail than everyone who benefits and why. When you do a USM implementation, all needs principles, and principles are based on C-level goals, services routines, and your associated tooling are made clear to every organizational level and your customers there where they're needed. And ensures that C-level can direct, evaluate, and monitor requested service value based on the goals that are incorporated in your service management principles. And managers gain better control over what their teams need to deliver because they know what service quality is expected. So they can give better guidance and direction to their professionals to achieve that and measure it. It becomes measurable. And for operators, they gain a better insight in their own services, routines, and agreements. Same thing, clear expectations, and that leaves you with more time to be the expert you really are, instead of doing standardized stuff. And
I love that.
then for whom we really do it, customers, citizens, clients, patients, whatever you name them, they know what they can expect and what is expected from them. And we all are professionals, but at the same time, we're citizens. We all need to eat our own dog food. So anyways, the result of implementing USM is that no one needs to think twice about things. And in the end, that means a happier everyone.
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic answer. Thank you, Esther. It makes a lot of sense. So it really does sound like this method has been well thought through. Let's have a look at the next question, because we've got so many live questions coming up as well. I think the next question is, what sets USM apart from alternative approaches? So I'd like to start off with John, if I may. So John, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think I mentioned earlier, it doesn't compete with the popular frameworks like ITIL and COVID and others. It's really highly complementary to all of those other frameworks. So that's really important to understand. I think one of the most important benefits that it provides is this structure and stability for the enterprise. And when we say management system, we're not talking about a tool, right? We're talking about a management system, and it's based on systems thinking. And I know Jan can elaborate on that as well. But it allows you to use and leverage any standard, any practice model, any reference model, any organizational topology. And, in today's VUCA world, if you will, that's really critical to have a management system that can do that. And so the USM does that really, really effectively. And I think that's different than any other practice framework that you're going to look at.
Yeah, totally agree with you there. Mikko, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's kind of like adding what John said about, so it's a complementary, so it's a method. You need both the method and you need other stuff, but without the method, you end up with chaos. So if you have a systematic approach with a method to apply any practice standard, framework, referral model, whatever, that's what USM gives you. So when I work with the governance thingies, I work quite a lot with IT service providers, with COVID, with ITIL, with BITSM, with ISO 27000, 20000. The method for me, it's always the same.
Fantastic. Excellent. Jan, your thoughts on this, please.
Short comment. You focused on the opposite position. USM focuses on the foundation of the, let's say, the building, the heart of the system, and not on the symptoms, the flaws of the building. And that's what best practice frameworks do. They describe what you're doing in the floors. They have no idea of the foundational structure that's behind that. So that's something that USM sets USM apart. But more important, USM simplifies where most other approaches make a rather complex statement. For instance, with the simple USM process model and 8 templates for USM workflows, we can reproduce any number of value streams or customer journeys with the same set of 8 templates. Now that is something that's called a little bit of magic, but if you understand how USM works, you can create with a simple set of templates any number of value streams or customer journeys of any practical situation of any team in any line of business. And I think that is the real heart of the simplification idea behind USM.
Awesome. Fantastic. And I think that makes a lot of sense as well. So, I mean, the questions are just pouring in here at the moment. So I think we can hardly keep up with the live ones, So I think we're just going to move straight on to the next one, if you don't mind. And folks, keep those questions coming. We'll try to get to as many of them as we can. The next question we're going to take here is, I'm going to start with Mikko and then move to Esther. So how does USM work? And how do you deploy USM? So, Mikko, if you want to get us started on that.
Well, the quickest way to deploy USM is get the book, read it, and start working with it. Start playing around with it. Get one small point, start working around, apply it. That's how it goes. And in our organizations, we've been working with the USM with it's always there is one very concrete thing they want to solve. Or we want to solve together. And so then it's working around that. Usually we always go back to that picture we saw earlier today. So it's about the provider, the customer, it's about the service. So where are we in this very situation? What is the practical challenge we are facing? What are we trying to solve? And that's the starting point. And then take it from there. That's how it works.
That's how it works. Fantastic. That's really, really great. Esther, what are your thoughts on this?
At Justid, we started on a small scale, same as Mikko says, and I had already shared dictionary service management principles and templates for all things, and these are all for free on the USM portal. If you join us, and perhaps in the wiki, don't know, it's a question for Jan. But for me, with that in our backpack, we 2 people started with awareness about what USM can bring to the table. So we went to teams and management of IT, HRM, finance, communications, administration, control. And after that, we had 3 teams that really wanted to create the necessary use cases to convince the organization about the value of USM. So then we selected ambassadors, and they followed the USM foundation training, where we combined theory directly with the daily practice. And then we were able to co-create first service descriptions and corresponding workflows. And that was what was needed. We're working on our service principles with the architectural team and try to add them to the acceptance criteria we use in the change process. And with those showcases first successes, we will bring them to the direction team in order to create sponsorship for a broad implementation of USM. And then it will be a project. But I need to say one word of warning. USM is not difficult to implement. The difficulty lies in the fact that it's mainly a change in thinking and therefore in culture. So sponsorship and really seeing, needing, and wanting the change are essence.
Right.
My famous, famous last words.
Famous last words, Esther. But yeah, what you say is so true, right? It's a change in mindset, and that actually means also a change in the organization's culture. And from the top down, the sponsorship needs to buy into that and desire it, and therefore foster that culture of change to be able to do this, right?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, folks, we need to move on. So let's have a look at our next question. And the next question is, what about tools? So Jan, I'm going to start with you, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'll keep it short because the SURVUZ Foundation doesn't provide tools. We don't sell anything. But if you go back in history, in mid-90s, every help desk tool suddenly turned into an ITIL tool when ITIL became dominant. It wasn't that long ago when every ITIL tool suddenly became an enterprise service management tool when some enterprise service management thinking became dominant. So when all these tools are focusing on the best practice guidance that is dominant, the only thing they do is they reflect the structure of the best practices, meaning that all the dominant tools have a module-based structure. And modules, by definition, are redundant. And redundancy is the arch enemy of efficiency. Therefore, if you want to do something with your tooling, you should turn it around and you should reconfigure your existing tooling. Most likely can do what you need to do and reconfigure it according to the management system of USM, and you will suddenly be able to do much, much more with the very same products. And we'll be back on the topic of tooling in a follow-up webinar, I think. So let's leave it to this.
Yeah, I agree. And that is quite right. What Jan says, folks, this is the first episode in a series. Tooling will be covered in one of the other episodes as well. So make sure you follow our page for more information on that. Mikko, your final thoughts on this question briefly.
Yeah, not much to add. Jan put it in very briefly and very to the point. But my experience, any tool out there at the moment in enterprise service management or IT service management space, we can work with, and we can bring more value with it once we rethink the way it's organized.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mikko. Okay, next question is going to be for Jan. Very briefly, Jan, what are your future plans for the product? I know we're going to be talking about this a lot more in future, but let us have a quick overview.
In short, USM is moving towards a community-driven open source position where knowledge sharing is core business. And the best thing you can see to prove that is the way the Dutch government has adopted the USM thinking in their national reference architectures. And so we can now attack nationwide economies based on the same idea of a link to compose endless supply chains and service ecosystems based on a management system specification that is built from an architecture. I think that's where we're going.
Okay, fantastic. All right. I think we have so many different questions that have come in live now. We're just not going to have time to take all of them. So I'm going to go through a selection of them here. So panelists, get ready to put your hands up to answer. So the first question we're going to take here is, what's the difference between a process and routines? So Powell, thanks for that question. The difference between a process and routines. Panel, who would like to answer first? Jan, let's dive straight into you.
It's going to be very simple because there's 3 types of routines according to USM. Only from the level of what the activity is involved, we call that a process. If you add the who to the what and appoint the persons that are executing the activities, we talk about a procedure. If you then add the how to the who and the what, we talk about work instructions. So there are 3 types of routines from whatever level you look at it, and that's how we structure any routine from any organization in any line of business.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jan. That's really, really helpful. Okay, so the next question we have is experience-based. Okay, what is most difficult when starting to work with USM? What's the most difficult part when starting to, Mikko, you got your hand up first. This is like test the team, right? Who gets to get the hand up first? Go, Mikko.
In my experience, USM is deceivingly simple. So rethinking yourself out of the complexity, that's the most important one. Then we come into what Esther mentioned earlier. It's the culture. It's how to change the culture, how to change ourselves to rethink the old stuff from the new angle and combining them. And that's the biggest challenge. My head still hurts from after 4 years.
Yeah. Okay. Absolutely right.
I like that. Esther, you've got a comment on this one as well.
Yeah, I I really said what I wanted to say, but for me, we need to be our own customers. If we don't think from customer perspective, we're just doing our job, and USM requires that you deliver from customer need. So be your own customer and make that change. For me, that's essential. But it's
Okay.
like we already said, it's a culture change and a shift in thinking, and that's the most difficult. And USM, implementing USM is not difficult.
Okay. So I think you're right there. I think it's going to be harder to get that culture shift in place, right? That change in mindset. That's the more difficult than anything else. Okay. So many questions here. So we're just going to jump straight into the next one. The next one is, okay, who is the expected customer in an organization for USM? Architecture department or IT operations? Interesting.
Okay.
Who wants to take this one? Jan. Jan won this one again.
The answer is anyone, because the concept of the link puts together a customer-provider interaction model. It is a relative position in a supply chain. When you are a customer, you are also a provider to your customers, who are providers to their customers. So USM is a concept for any positioning of any customer-provider relationship in the format of a link in a supply chain or ecosystem. So it doesn't really matter anything.
Anybody
View of
in
universal
essence
is applying here.
Okay, fantastic. Excellent. So we're going to move on to the next question then. And the next question is, how should Unified Service Management USM be introduced in an enterprise? Should it be implemented per domain or by addressing existing challenges? So Patrick, thank you. This is a very interesting and good question. Mikko won the hands up toss for this one. So Mikko, all yours.
Yeah, my advice is always start with the very concrete thing and try to tackle it with the new thinking. Try to rethink your way around the existing issue or challenge. And that becomes, it's all, once you find it and you learn it, and then you can expand the view, take more services or more domains into it. But always start with the very concrete thing. Tackle it first, because that way you learn. You learn faster, you get it more, you get into value faster.
Fantastic. Thanks, Mikko. Esther, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with Mikko, and you can choose your approach. You can start with, for example, one theme or one team. You can also start with some urgent issue. You can do both, but start small. Start small and show them what you can deliver in that small area, and then it will gradually grow.
Fantastic. That's a great way to start, actually. John, your thoughts on this before we go to Jan?
Yeah, real quick. The only thing that I would say is make sure you understand it. Read the book, take a class. Don't run full speed ahead. Make sure you understand it before you go crazy.
That's very, very good and sage advice there. Take a course. Definitely, by the way, there are courses on this. So the QR code, go to the wiki, go to the APMG page. You can definitely find an accredited training provider to go and attend courses on, and definitely read the book. All right. Jan, your final thoughts on this
about
question?
Introducing in an enterprise there's two ways of doing this: top down and bottom up. And although I really prefer top down because that takes on the whole enterprise in once, there's a huge lack of understanding with C-level. They are writing abstract policies about what service management should be. They have no practical idea of how to translate that to operations. So we unfortunately see very few top-down deployments of USM thinking. We always see it bottom-up. It's always, as Mikko and Esther said, take something practical for one team and try to involve some of the other teams to join the army and then slowly eat the whole enterprise. That's normally how it goes.
How it goes, yeah, in reality. It's funny, it often goes like that in reality though, Jan, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, that buy-in comes from the bottom. People have a problem, you know, that is maybe not recognized at CEO or CXO level. And certainly maybe not the importance of of that problem. And they find a solution and they start to use that solution. And then everybody starts to realize, wow, that solution is really fantastic and it could actually work for other things too, and so it grows on, right? It just gets bigger and bigger.
It should be from both sides. That would be perfect. If you look at the Netherlands, currently we have the Dutch government that has adopted USM in the national architecture. So that's a top-down one. At the same time, all kinds of ministry departments and municipalities, they adopt it on an individual base. So that's a bottom-up one. And I hope within 5 or 10 years, they will meet in the middle.
Fantastic. Hopefully they will. That will be the ideal class, number one, definitely. Okay, next question, panel. How does USM collaborate with approaches that propose like SAFE, TOGAF, etc.? How does it work with other approaches? So Jan, I'm going to stick with you and then Mikko for this.
Yeah, USM, the U of USM is not there for nothing. The USM can support any number of practices from any approach, whatever it's like SAFE or TOGAF is completely different. It's just an architectural approach. So it's everything in there, everything in the arena of best practice frameworks and structures is complementary, fundamentally complementary to what USM does. It's all about the symptoms. It's all about the things you want to do in practice. USM is the only opportunity you have to find something about the heart of the system. So without USM, you will never be a complete system, whatever guidance you take from any of these examples.
Great, Jan. Thank you so much for that. Mikko.
This will be fast. What he said.
What he said, I like that. Yeah, he's absolutely right. Yeah, and I think nothing exists in isolation, right? In organizations, but and that's something everybody needs to remember. Okay. Next question for Esther. Go ahead.
One comment, because how you do it in practice, I introduced USM within an organization that works agile, works with ITIL. This is my previous organization, one of the data centers, the governmental data centers. And you can combine all those things. But to just give a quick comment, perhaps we lack a bit of time. But if people are interested in how you do that, I can provide my email address, and you can ask me any question you want about how to do it.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's a really nice offer, Esther. And I think instead of handing out your email address, I would urge people to connect to folks like anybody on the panel on LinkedIn. Okay. So connect to us on LinkedIn and we can point you in the right direction of how to answer those questions. You can give us those questions directly.
Yeah, a bit more elaborate than the time we've got now.
Absolutely. And by the way, you can also join the community. And this is before we get on to the next question. There is a great community on LinkedIn for USM. And just if you search for USM method on LinkedIn, or just go to linkedin.com/company USM method, you can join the USM community and be part of it. And you'll see all of the latest updates and information as it comes up. So don't forget to follow that company on LinkedIn. There's lots of information there. Right, everybody, next live question. We are running out of time. So how does USM compare to ITIL processes over CSDM? So interesting question here. Who would like to take this one? Jan has got his hand up, I think, moments before Mikko in this one. So Jan, you get to go first, then Mikko.
If you would count, if you take an online version of an ITIL book and you count the number of times they refer to processes, you will find almost 100. So ITIL doesn't really talk about processes that are customer facing. They are all sequences of activities that are internal. So what USM does is it starts thinking from the customer, and it only looks at anything you do from the perspective of that customer. Therefore, any workflow of USM is customer facing, and therefore it resembles the things we call customer journeys and value streams. So USM has a different definition of processes than ITIL has ever had before. Although ITIL says they talk about processes, they actually only talk about internal sequences of activities or about practices in real practice. And CSDM is a nice instrument that can be used because that's a practical instrument, and USM doesn't provide practices, so we can definitely benefit from the practical guidance in things like CSDM.
Fantastic. Thank you. Mikko, your thoughts next.
My answer is again what he said, and for the CSDM, well, yeah, it's any practice. Basically, if you have, for example, a very practical level, work instruction level thingy, then you can combine the logic of the USM. So it fits there, and it gives you a shortcut in practice on how you can work on your own, applying the logic in the USM. So that's how it works. That's how it
works. Fantastic. Okay, we really are running out of time, so we're going to take one, maybe two questions if we keep our answers short, folks. And this one is a nice one. It says, and if so, how does USM show ROI, so return on investment, or is that outside of scope of USM? Jan, I think this is it's Mikko's got his hand up first.
Hi.
Mikko, you're in there first.
A real life scenario. So, well, answer is always, well, it depends on the scope where you start with the USM. But looking at the effort that the customer organization put in for a learning, going to course, taking 2 days, foundation course, and start working on a thingy, they were able to solve a challenge they haven't been able to solve in 11 years. They were able, in 2 months' time, to get the return of investment about 700% of the time and investment spent in 3 months' time. So that was like a very spot on, very long hanging fruit, but they had not been able to solve it before. But it always depends on the view and approach you take. But the return, yeah, it is there. I've seen it many times already.
And that's a fantastic example, Mikko. Thank you. Renee, I hope that gives you some idea of how quickly this can help. Right, Jan, you've got some further thoughts on this, right?
Just a small one, because Mikko's example should actually deliver the proof. But to me, I always wonder how it has been possible that we can even think of getting in control without a systematic approach. So, talking about return on investment, how can you not understand that a systematic approach to doing what you did in an efficient and effective way will bring you a bundle? I've never been able to understand how people think from practices and practices only. You need something additional to that, and then you can benefit from the practices, but only then.
There you go. Fantastic. And I like the comment from Renee. Thank you. Okay. So it's ROI flipped on its head. So from the customer view.
Exactly.
Perfect. That is exactly what we're talking about, Renee. Thank you so much for the question. Unfortunately, there are so many questions coming in, but we have run out of time, folks. So what we're going to do now is I'm just going to put up the QR code, because earlier on there were probably some people who missed that. But in case you want to go to have a look at the USM Wiki, please go ahead there. I'm going to we'll go around the panel and get your closing comments, if you don't mind, before we close off. Now, to the audience out there, before we do that, this is the first in a series. We're going to be doing a number of these. We're going to collect these questions and your email addresses, and we'll pass them on to the panel so that they can get the unanswered questions, and we can get back to you with the answers to those questions. We don't want to leave you hanging without answering those. We all know which ones we have answered. So with the unanswered ones, we will get back to you. And Jan, I'll pass all of those over to you to get answers back out to people. But in the meantime, I'd like to go around the panel for your closing comments. And Jan, I'd like to start with you, if I don't mind.
Yeah, I think this is a great start. And this is just about what USM is and what its position is versus all the best practice guidance that we've seen for decades now. In the next sessions, we'll go into details like the concept of a service. What is actually a management architecture? What is a workflow? How do you create value streams from simple templates? The stuff that really is going to work, I think that's where somebody should be interested in. So that's what we're going to provide in the follow-up sessions.
Wonderful. Absolutely. Looking forward to them. Mikko, your final comments for today.
Yeah, usmwiki.com. Start there and join the community. You won't regret.
Great idea.
You won't regret it.
No, I've looked at it. It's fantastic. So definitely go over there. Esther, your final comments for today?
Well, dare to go boldly and dare to change, and follow us and join us.
Yeah.
You won't know what you get until you follow us, and just dare to change. What we
Very
have
good
now
point.
is not good enough. Dare to change.
Yeah. Dare to change. I like that statement. That's a very, very good thing. Okay, thank you. John, final comments from you, please?
Well, the only thing I would say is any service management professional shouldn't be afraid to relearn the fundamentals. And USM is fundamental. Management system is fundamental, and it involves some relearning, and sometimes that's painful, particularly for people who've been in the business a while.
Absolutely agree. So thank you. First of all, thank you, panel. You did a fantastic job of answering a lot of questions being thrown your way in a very short space of time today. And I think that the message was really, really positive for everybody. And so, most of all, thank you to all of our viewers. It's been fantastic. You guys have been so engaging in the chat. I can hardly keep up. So many questions. Wonderful. I can just see people are saying thank you for great sessions and just really enjoying it. Very informative and interesting, and so many social, chat events going on here today. So I hope that you guys will join us for the next ones. This next sessions will probably take, as Jan said, a little bit of a deeper dive from this perspective or that perspective, getting into specific issues and areas that, how would you get USM into that particular area and so on. All right. So thanks a ton, everybody. I'm just going to close off now. So panel, if you can just stay on for a sec. So if you take a look over on our website, you can find answers to more than 2,800 questions now. And these questions from today will all be added to there as well. So it's a great free resource connecting you with experts from all around the world. And don't forget, you can also listen to the audio versions of our podcast on your preferred platform as well. So looking ahead, what have we got coming up? On Friday the 19th, this Friday, we've got a Level Up series on how to become an earned value professional. Just a reminder, we'll be taking a quick break from Level Up over the August period. On Wednesday the 24th to the 26th, we have the Agile 2024, the European Experience Conference. It's an in-person conference, but they are live streaming a part of it. So head over to our website and get the details for that and register for that event. And on the 20th of August, our next USM event takes place. So watch the website for more information on that. And lastly, on the 26th and 30th of August, we're going to be looking a little bit at DT Method. So it's a two-part webinar series. So those of you who are interested in design thinking, take a look at that. We're going to be looking at how or what DT Method actually is, why it's taking the world by storm, and therefore also how to implement it effectively. All the details, registration information, everything is on our website. So head over there and sign up. Thanks, everybody. And what we will see you on is the next show. And hopefully that will be very, very soon. So see you on the next one.